Hey, good morning, Texas Realtors. It is December 16th, 2024. And for those of you that have seen the TR emails, it's time to start talking about a new contract. The edits that got promulgated are ready to rock and roll. So, first off, we're going to be hitting today is the 1-to-4 contract and specifically the changes within compensation. That's kind of the goal of today's conversation. There's a lot more. There's some new addendum. The new 1030 addendum is really good. T47 no longer needs to be notarized if you're using the declaration page. Lots of great stuff that Trek did, but specifically, we're going to talk about compensation and on the 1-to-4 because the addendum for broker's fee is going away and it is now on the contract ready to go. These changes are required in January. They are available today. Zip Forms, DocuSign, and Dotloop have all upgraded to the new version of the 1-to-4 contract. So I believe this will be kind of your modus operandi moving forward. So let's get into it here. Let's jump in and talk about the 1-to-4. So 1-to-4, you need to make sure you are using the 11/4/2024. This is the 20-18 version of the form. And it is it's got some minor changes and it's got some bigger ones. Specifically today, I'm going to focus on the workflow of compensation. This has been the number one question I've been getting from a lot of agents. And so I kind of want to get into this and focus on that. There are some other changes as well. As always, please double check with your broker how they would like it handled. So let's jump into paragraph 12. This is the biggest change that we are hearing everyone having questions around is how does this work? How does this function? When does it work? When do I use this versus the page 10 disclosure? Keep going. Page 10 disclosure section. So we've got two different places now that kind of reference compensation, and we need to figure out when to use which one. There is a scenario where you use both. So specifically, let's check our workflow. What I want to do is I made a flow chart here. Let's check it out. So document usage, which section of 1-to-4? Again, this is specifically on the 2018. And we do have a bit of a workflow here. If this just made you sweat a little bit, that's okay. And it's not as hard as it looks, but there are different flows for different questions. I'm going to focus specifically on non-intermediary right now, and let's kind of walk through this. So I'm going to make this nice and big so y'all can see it. Forgive me, I'm looking at two monitors at once to make sure it looks nice for y'all. Great. Okay, so you have non-intermediary. This means two separate brokers. Let's start with if listing broker is offering cooperative compensation and it covers all of buyer's obligation. Well, let's double check and think through this. How would we know if the offer of compensation covers all of your buyer's rep's obligation? Well, this kind of goes back to that listing agreement that we have. And they would have chosen paragraph 5A as their form of compensation. It is a whole percentile or a whole dollar amount that is then cooperatively shared. So if the listing agreement is using 5A, we are going to follow this flow. And pretty simply, I've got some little screenshots here. Let's just zoom in here, make it as easy as y'all can see. And I will share this workflow as well. If listing broker is offering cooperative compensation and it covers all of buyer's obligation, you are going to leave paragraph 12 blank. You are going to get the compensation agreement between brokers. And then you are going to write the amount in dollars or percentage on the disclosure section on page 10. So hold up. Let's look at that on the actual contract. I'm saying that we're going to leave this blank, paragraph 12. 12.1b, and then in the page 10 disclosure, we are going to fill this out. You will put in a dollar amount or a percentile. Okay. The reason you need the cooperation, the compensation between brokers is this is a disclosure. It says it right here. This disclosure is for informational purpose and does not change previous agreements. Well, here's your previous agreement right here. Compensation agreement between brokers. This form did not change. You should be somewhat familiar with seeing this one floating around, okay? So if listing broker is offering cooperative compensation and it covers all of buyer's obligation, it is simple. Leave paragraph 12 blank, get the compensation agreement between brokers, write amount in dollars or percentage on the disclosure section on page 10. Okay. If listing broker is offering cooperative compensation and it does not cover all of buyer's obligation. So specifically, if 5A is checked as the listing agreement and it does not cover all of the buyer's obligation, we have two paths forward. I'm going to start on the right side because this is the more simpler one, is we would amend buyer's rep to offering. If that's what you want to do, if that's what you and your buyer agree to, if that's what your broker allows, then you would do so. You would simply grab the amendment, check for the box, make the changes. You will leave paragraph 12 blank. You will get the compensation agreement between brokers and write the amount in dollars or percentage on the disclosure section on page 10. This should feel very natural, as this is also the same as our if they offered enough. You would just simply need to amend buyer's rep to the offering. If you want to negotiate additional compensation from seller, we are teaching the algorithm formula, whatever you want to call it, D plus B equals C, where D is the difference from what is being offered and the buyer's rep. B is what broker is offering. C is total compensation on buyer's rep. Now, I realize that's ridiculously simple and sounds childish, but I'm a visual. Sorry. So where would D go? Well, the difference in this scenario is actually going to go into paragraph 12 because this is a new obligation to the seller. And so you would check that box in 12A1B and put a dollar amount or a percentile in there for the difference from what is being offered and the total compensation on the buyer's rep. Okay. We will still need the compensation agreement between brokers, and you will write the amount in dollars or percentile on the disclosure section on page 10 of broker offering. I've heard some people disagree on this, so let me know what you think. This is the best way that we have found and the most clear. Okay. All right. I don't think this will happen a whole lot, but if it does, you do have this in your tool chest to rock and roll if the listing broker is offering cooperative compensation and it does not cover all of buyer's obligation. All right. Next up, if listing broker is not offering cooperative compensation, they took that listing and they took it with 5B, broker's fee without compensation for other broker. We will use the workflow of writing the amount in dollars or percentile on paragraph 12B. It should be 12A1B, excuse me. This is a new obligation to the seller, okay? You will leave blank the disclosure section on page 10 as there is no broker compensation. So if listing broker is not offering cooperative compensation, you will write it into paragraph 12, which is creating a new obligation to the seller, and leave the disclosure section blank. Okay? All right. So this is specifically for a non-intermediary situation. I know it looks a little bit daunting, but it's really not. I think with enough practice, this will get pretty simple for all of us to work through. Intermediary, I'm going to speak specifically to our brokerage and how we've decided to handle this. I know there's a lot of conversation around different ways to handle this. So here's what we're doing. Take what you want for it. Please have a conversation with your broker. Specifically with intermediary, if the listing agreement is offering cooperative compensation and it covers all of buyer's obligation. Let me state that again. If listing agreement is offering cooperative compensation and it covers all of buyer's obligation, you will leave paragraph 12 blank. You will have the intermediary notice signed, and you will leave the disclosure section on page 10 blank as there is no other broker. Okay. All right. So specifically, the question I get on this is, where are we disclosing this? That's a great question that I hope Texas Realtors works on a little bit. In this time, you would need to fall back on your independent contractor agreement to fall through on how those funds will be distributed. Again, talk with your broker. All right. If listing agreement is offering cooperative compensation and it does not cover all of buyer's obligation. So there is a difference. We will go back to our fun little algorithm where we will negotiate additional compensation from the seller. D plus B equals C. Difference from what is being offered. B is what agreement is offering. C is total compensation on buyer's rep. You will again place the difference in paragraph 12B. You will need an intermediary notice, and you will leave the disclosure section on 10 blank, as there is no other broker. This is the one that I think a lot of people could find confusing. Again, the difference is what goes into paragraph 12 because it is a new obligation to the seller. Okay. Your other option, of course, is amend buyer's reps to offering. Again, you're going to use the Texas 1505. You'll check the amendment. You'll leave paragraph 12 blank. You'll use an intermediary notice, and you'll leave the disclosure section on page 10 blank, as there is no other broker. Okay. If listing agreement is not offering cooperative compensation, so if it is an intermediary and listing agreement is not offering cooperative compensation, so again, we're going to come back to this section right here. We are going to write amount in dollars or percentage on paragraph 12, A1B. This is a new obligation to the seller. Okay. You will still need an intermediary notice, and you will leave the disclosure section on page 10 blank, as there is no other broker. I think most of the questions right now are going to come probably from the intermediary section. But that being said, it really does not change the flow of money. This is the conversations we need to be having with our buyers and sellers. Document-wise, the addendum for broker's fee will be going away. TR said on the 16th. I've still seen it a couple of times in zip forms and DocuSign. So it may still be there. You cannot use the addendum for broker's fees alongside the 2018 contract. So do not attach the 2018 contract, 20-18, the one that was released on November 4th, 2024, or promulgated, excuse me. So that cannot be used together, okay? The intermediary relationship notice, specifically this one, I just wanted to show you this one in case for some reason you haven't seen this. It does disclose the agent associations within the intermediary space, okay? So I will put a link to this workflow in the comments so y'all can kind of check it out and work through it. I hope this helps. I hope it doesn't create more confusion. This changed as of this morning. We did see all of the 1-4s flip over this morning to the new version. So please ask questions. Let's work together and let's find solutions. Thank you, guys.